All right, welcome to Train the Trainer. I love this. We have not taught this in so long. Ed, welcome back.
Oh man. You know, well, Darren, in preparation for this particular webinar, I did some additional research. Okay. All right. And
Bring it on.
myself,
Bring it on.
I wanted to find something new and different. You know, I just didn't want to do the same old. So I reached for a very important resource, and that is this resource right here. Is called "Oh Crap Potty Training." Okay, by Jamie Glowacki, the Pied Piper of Poop. Now, for those of you who don't know me, I have a four-year-old daughter, and so this is my wife and my daughter right there. So you can see them right there. Okay, and so we just recently went through this. So, but hey, they had some really good tips in here, man. So here we go. All right, so here's tip number one. Okay, don't be attached to the outcome. That can be taken multiple ways.
Yeah, especially in poop.
Look for progress, not perfection. That's a good piece of advice. Stay off of your phone. That is also a good piece of advice when it comes to training. Okay. Lead with confidence, silliness, and creativity. And I think we're in agreement here. I'm leading with silliness.
We just did.
Okay. And tip number 5 is to bring a spare change of clothes. Well, maybe that last tip wasn't universal and things of that nature. But anyway, hey, some really good tips. And for those of you who have little ones, this is an awesome book. Darren, back to you.
Yeah. And one of the things we wanted to talk about, because I think people don't get it, is training versus speaking. So right away, we want to just differentiate what are the differences. And then we've got 4 secrets that you're going to walk away with. And Ed, I don't know if you want to mention right up here, but Ed and I have an event coming up in a couple of weeks called Train the Trainer. So we're going to tell you more about that at the end if you're interested, for those who are serious. So just don't want to surprise you, but we going through this and preparing for it. I'm like, these are good secrets. I didn't know these back in 2001 before I learned from you. So super high level, Ed, what's your training background?
So my training background is I'm a former training director for a company called the Denver Rocky Mountain News. Now, for the younger people, you might have to chat GPT what a newspaper is. Okay. Anyway, this is how we got information before there was something called TikTok or ChatGPT. But anyway, I just trained 1,500 people per year. Prior to that, I used to be one of the trainers for a company called CareerTrack. CareerTrack is one of the largest training companies in the world, and I was among their top trainers. I'm also a trainer for something called Miller Heiman Strategic Selling. So I teach my clients and my customers how to actually sell to large corporations and large organizations. I have been through Bob Pike's training program. Bob Pike is in not only the Speaking Hall of Fame, but he's also in the Training Hall of Fame as well. And there's something called Train the Trainer from T. Harv Eker when he had his programs back in the day. So that's just a fraction of my training background. This is one of my superpowers. This is one of the things I love to absolutely do, and I want to share this superpower with you. And it's applicable not just for trainers or speakers. It's applicable if you work in a job and your boss says, hey, I need you to train someone, or I want you to share this information. It's applicable if you work for a nonprofit organization and you find yourself in a leadership role. One of the things that you'll have to do on a regular basis is to train people. So this is an ongoing, continuous skill. I want to say this about this skill. It is not a skill that you just read about. You can't read a book. It is not a skill that you just watch some videos and you can get better at. Training and speaking are an active skill. In order for you to get better at it, you got to get in the game. Darren?
Amen. And to point out, there's also the idea that there's a lot of people, and I know some of you here may be dreaming of being that high-paid professional speaker. Yeah, I get it. I love it. It's fun and it's exciting. But what you might not know is there's way more training opportunities than there are speaking opportunities, especially at the highest level. Like, look, it's there. What you also might not know is there are some well-known high-paid keynote speakers that all started their career as trainers. So it was like a launching pad, a stepping stone to getting a lot of quote unquote stage time to prepare them for the big stage. Mention a few names. Ed Tate. I don't know if you've heard of him. World champion. Craig Valentine, David Brooks, Ford Sakes. I know a lot of you know Ford Sakes. He started as a trainer, training other people's content. Now he's, world-class Hall of Fame, Sanborn, Mark Sanborn. So there's a lot of rock stars that started in training. Here's the other cool part. There's a lot of rock stars in speaking who offer training as a back end, as a next step. So Ed, I got a super quick question for you, but these keynote speakers, and I won't mention their names because I don't have permission, but they get like a $10,000 or $20,000 speech, and then they write a huge contract to go deeper. Because one difference that I learned from you, Ed, is speaking, as Patricia Fripp says, is a higher level of abstraction. So it's designed to be inspirational, entertaining, whereas training, as I learned from you, is a change of behavior. So Ed, going back to you and your experience, what are some of the keys that differentiate the people? Because we differentiate the skill set, because I think that's critical before we give the 4 secrets.
Okay. So I want to piggyback on just a comment that you made that, some people use speaking and then they actually offer their clients training. And speaking is a tool to get people excited. It is a tool to, get people exposed to ideas, and training is how we're going to keep the momentum going, how we're going to execute. I have used this technique for 2 decades. I recently had a new accountant, and my new accountant shared with me something I call the BFO. It was a blinding flash of the obvious. And this blinding flash of the obvious was this. She says, hey, yes, you have a very successful speaking business. You do like a lot of keynote speeches. She says, however, the vast majority of your profits comes from your training part of the business. And by that, what she means is I have clients who have hired me for 6, 7, 8, 9. I've got one client who hired me 13 years in a row. That contract was worth, $500,000, if you will. And so anyway, using speaking as a tool to get training and be rehired over and over and over again, especially in large corporations. So let's talk about some differences between speaking and training.
Hey, Ed, real quick.
Yeah.
I want to piggyback on that. So we have a friend, I won't mention the name, but she got a $140,000 contract to train Nike speakers.
Wow.
The Nike Corporation. And think about it. You can get a $10,000 or $20,000 speech. That's awesome.
Awesome.
Then you're unemployed if you don't have a back end or if you don't have a training. But training contracts, like I know you had a big one with Hallmark that, again, 6 figures, the contract. So we're saying both, but here's what we're really saying. There's a different skill set needed to be world class at both. Big mistake I made is I thought, well, I tell good stories as a speaker. Let me just add an exercise after the story and we'll be fine. No. Go ahead.
Well, I'm looking up a quote that talks about this very thing. Okay, so here's a quote. It is, let's see, I'm going to pull this up real quick and share this with the audience. Oops, wrong button. Let's try this again. I love this quote. This is from a book entitled, let's see. Oops, I'm sorry. This is about debriefing. This is not the correct quote. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Let's see. Darn it. Sorry about that. It's basically, the quote goes like this. Okay, here we go. I found it. And nothing that we go through once is permanent. Now, this quote is from, I'm gonna bring it up because I can't pronounce a person. Shad Helmstetter, and he says, nothing that we go through once is permanent. None of the books and training or self-help programs continue to work by themselves without constant reinforcement. And here's the difference between speaking and training. Speaking, you listen to a speech once. Training is ongoing, is continuous. The goal here is to change people's behavior. And that's what training programs are about. And that's why I've been hired year after year after year. We actually get results. The client actually sees the results. They see the behavior change. That represents a return on investment. By the way, training is a lot easier to show a return on investment as opposed to a keynote speech. Okay. Because you can see behavior change, you can see increases in sales, you can see in improvement in morale and things of that nature. But again, the thing about training is it's ongoing, it's continuous. So that's one big difference between speaking and training.
Yeah. The cool part is because it's ongoing, they have to keep paying you.
This is true. This is true. That's another true part about it as well.
Do you want to dive into the secrets or anything else between training versus speaking?
I'll let you lead. Go ahead.
So let's dive in. Secret number one, what we call before rapport. Before rapport, meaning creating a connection before we even start, sometimes before we even get there. But let's also give you a little highlight of what we do and how we do it. But we have a question for you, and we're going to ask you to type in the chat after, why do you think we do this? So I only do this when Ed is around because I don't want to do this by myself. It's not part of my training toolbox, and we're here to give you more tools for your training toolbox. This comes right out of Ed's. He's the best at it. But when we get into the room, say we're starting at 9 o'clock, at 8:50, everybody, Ed says, okay, everybody get up, please, and come over to this side of the room where the empty spot is. And then, do you want to set it up anymore, or?
You go ahead.
All right. And then this happens. You get everybody in a circle while someone's in the center. But I want to show you how we do it live, how we do it virtual, and how we do it hybrid. So check this out. But remember, we're going to ask you, why do we do this?
Okay, we're about to play a game. The name of the game is called Follow the Leader. What's the name of the game? Follow the Leader. Please tell one of your neighbors what the name of the game is. Follow the Leader. Who is the leader? Rocco. Woo! Oh, there it is. There it is. Oh. Who knew? Who knew?
Notice the smiles, everyone. Notice the smiles.
Looks like someone knew, Rocco. There we go. All right. Whoa. Woo! All right. All right, George, new leader, new leader.
Ready for this?
Jump. Yes, you combine. So make you shake your pants like a champ. Come on and dance, guys. Grab a girl, don't
New leader, new leader.
whirling.
All right. So pop in the chat. Why do you think we do that? We haven't even technically started yet. It's not even starting time, but there's a strategic reason or several strategic reasons. And Ed is going to blow your mind at what you might not have considered. So we got.
Okay. We have connection from Ann. Thank you. I appreciate that. Let's just giving everyone the same wavelength. Thank you, Lisa. David, break preoccupation, team building. Okay, break tensions. So we have some people who know the answers. Okay. Wow, it's really coming up here quickly. Darren, so feel free to read. Break the ice, icebreaker. Let's see, raise energy levels.
Getting on
the heartbeat. Hey, one of the bonuses of you attending one of our training programs is we're guaranteed you will actually burn some calories. You will lose some weight, ladies and gentlemen. Now, we don't advertise that. We don't put that in the promotion, but that is just a side benefit. I just in case you're curious.
And I think that's why they come back, Ed. All right. So
okay.
One of the reasons is the audience, your audience, their reticular activating system. If you're not familiar with that, what that means is the part of your brain that looks for things, but you tell your brain what to look for. So if we jump right in and have fun right at the beginning, before start time, think of the way that most trainings start. So the first thing, okay, let's get started. Open your books. Here's the rules. Here's the fire escape, and what? So Ed gets us started before start time. So people walk in, they're still 5 minutes early, and they're like, what's going on? Boom, energy changes. But now you've set their brain, and think of reticular activating system this way, that if you are going to buy a new car and you decide you're going to buy a black Lexus, well, you're driving around town, what do you see everywhere? Black lexics. So you told your brain to look for this, so it's going to see it. So what we're doing strategically is getting the audience to look for fun and engagement. So we're setting the tone for 3 days. Consider this. So our events are 3 days, but whether it's a half day or a full day, people are going to spend a lot of time with you. It's not right. It's not cool, but it's the truth that they're judging you. How's this going to go? You know, are they going to keep us engaged? So their mindset, we want to set the tone for the mindset for that actual, we're going to have fun with this. This is going to be cool. This will be different. So we need to set that tone. And that's why I love that, Ed, you're the best at this. And we want to build before rapport because it also accelerates the learning.
Exactly. Now, the other thing, too, is that Darren emphasized we're going to have fun. So we're setting the tone. We're going to have fun. I tell this to every single person. Most of you have heard me say this before. I am going to have fun regardless. You are welcome to join me. The fun train will take off with or without you, you know? And again, I'm setting the tone. The way I feel about it is if I'm not going to have fun, no one's going to have fun. And by the way, everyone's watching you. As a trainer, here's something else that you need to know. If you want the audience to jump this high, you as a trainer must jump this high. In order to get them to go 50%, you've got to go 100%. So that's something else to consider. Another reason why we do before rapport, and this comes from Bob Pike, again, Hall of Fame speaker and trainer. He calls it the 4 tensions. There are 4 tensions that you're facing as a trainer and as a speaker. Tension number 1 is between the teacher, the speaker, and the students. That's that facilitator, whatever you call yourself. That's tension number 1. Tension number 2 is between students and students. I'm sure you've heard this before, that the number 1 fear is public speaking. The number 1 fear is not public speaking. The number 1 fear is public humiliation. It's public embarrassment. That's what the number 1 fear is. The number 2 fear is walking into an environment of people you don't know, be it live or virtual. So that's the number 2 fear, is between students. The number 3 fear is the environment. Again, live or virtual. Again, that is another tension that you're up against as a speaker and a trainer. And finally, the materials. So your handouts, your workbooks, your PowerPoint slides, whatever it may be, these are the 4 tensions that you're up against. One of the reasons that we do before rapport is to break down these tensions. Because typically, if you don't have an icebreaker activity or some type of before rapport activity, it's going to take you a long time. It's going to take you longer to connect with that audience, and especially if you're going to be with them over several days. So what we want to do is we want to eliminate that right away. You know, like in this case, by dancing. There's a purpose in dancing. The purpose in dancing here is not to make you look silly. The purpose here is to get everyone to relax, as most of you have said on the chat, to get everyone on the same page, if you will. Darren?
Yeah, perfect. And by the way, we're just giving you some highlights here. We do several things. We shake everyone's hand. When you walk in the door, Ed and I both shake your hand, welcome you, and we want to make eye contact. Before we send you homework and tools to download. If you're live, we still let you know, here's some pre-work you can do so you get more out of it. Well, guess what? That lets you know before you even come here that we care about you and we want you to get the most out of it. So we're trying to engage you again before we even get there. So there's many tools and techniques that we use to create that. So we come at before rapport from several different angles.
Alrighty.
Anything else on that one, Ed?
That's it.
All right. Let's go to secret number 2, the heartbeat of training. This is where I got it wrong. And a lot of people get it wrong who are speakers who try to become trainers. And by the way, you have the ability to, if you get your ego out of the way and realize the skill sets are different, I need to work on different things. So the heartbeat of training is storytelling. So for speaking, it's a big percentage of what you do as inspiring and entertaining. So you're a great storyteller. Well, you're probably going to be a great speaker. So it's important. Now, there's a little overlap. Storytelling helps on the training side, but the real difference is instructions are the heartbeat of training. Instructions are the heartbeat of training, whether it's online and you're sending people to breakout rooms or live in the room. Ed, your thoughts on that?
You must practice your directions and your instructions as a trainer as you would a story as a speaker. That's how critical instructions are. The confused mind says no. In fact, the confused mind will not go. So your instructions have to be clear and concise. So for example, again, we have fans, here, people who've been to our sessions before, and I want to thank everyone for showing up here. But like you've seen me do my storyteller program. It's called the Story Finder. There's 4 aspects of it: head, heart, humor, heavy hitting. When I'm teaching this exercise, how to use my storytelling formula, step number 1 is I break it down. You break it down to the smallest possible parts. You do not give all the directions at one time. If you give all the directions at one time, a person is confused. The confused mind will not go. The confused mind says no. So I break it down. I said, okay, think of an incident that's taken place in your life over the past 2 weeks. It doesn't have to be remarkable. In fact, if it's ordinary, that's even better. Just write that down. That's step number 1. Step number 2, I give you 4 questions to answer. What about this event is thought-provoking? What about this event would make people, connect, or they could relate to? What about this event is potentially funny? And what about this event has a message or a lesson? So that's step number 2. They answer these 4 questions. And then step number 3 is I put them together in group and they compare notes. If I were to give them all these directions at one time, everyone would be confused and no one would do anything and there would be no behavior change. So one of the critical things as a trainer, you have to break down your processes to the smallest parts. Now, virtually, it is even significantly more challenging. So this is how it goes if you're doing it the same process virtually. Number 1 is I'm going to make sure that everyone understands the directions. I'm going to go over the directions repeatedly. That first step 1, I'm going to go through it until everyone is on board. And then step 2 is I'm going to do that again. And then when I put people into breakout rooms in a virtual environment, I'm going to make sure before we actually put them in the breakout rooms that everyone understands the directions. Once they're in the breakout room, I'm going to send them the directions again in terms of a broadcast message. I'm also going to enter the breakout room, every single breakout room, to make sure everyone understands where we are so they can actually execute the exercise. And then after they come out of the exercise, I'm going to ask them again, do they still understand the exercise? And then we'll debrief it from there. So virtually, you've got to do even more work in terms of explaining directions. Darren?
Yeah, because think of it, if you're let's just say there's an 8-minute exercise, you're going to put people in a breakout room for 8 minutes. Well, if they're not clear, if one person is kind of clear and the other ones aren't, the first person who kind of gets it is going to spend 4 or 5 minutes explaining what you meant. And now they got 2 or 3 minutes to do the exercise maybe correctly. And Ed, I love when we do this live, you literally walk around the room and pop in on each group to see how they're doing. And as we say, leave no attendee behind. It will never be a perfect world, but if you don't get that you've got to have that clarity on instruction mindset, you will leave some people behind. So one thing I like to say is storytelling is to speaking as instructions are to training. Storytelling is to speaking as instructions are to training.
I would also add the confused mind stops listening.
Mm-hmm.
The confused mind stops listening.
Absolutely. It's just like the buying. They're just trying to buy into your idea. Patrick Peason is here. Oh my goodness. This is crazy. All right. Secret number 3. By the way, we promised 3. We're going to give you 4 and we'll answer some questions after as well. So structure your training. Now, those of you who have followed us before, you know that we teach when you speak, we use the Patricia Fripp speech model. And yes, I love it. Mark uses this. I use this. Ed uses this. when you're creating a presentation. By the way, this webinar, that training we're doing for you right now, is based on this idea too. Only we're going to give you 4 secrets instead of 3. And then we fill in, we give the evidence, we explain it from 2 or 3 different directions and examples. However, training is different. Ed? Different stuff.
So there's a tool. So in our Train the Trainer, we share with you an advanced tool, and it's called the 3D model. And the 3D model is, what are you training? Why are you training? And how are you planning to deliver it? And the thing I like about this, it's an advanced tool. However, this tool enables you to design training rapidly. You can design like an hour training program in about 15 to 20 minutes using this particular tool. And it forces you to break out each segment. So like, your first idea, and in this case, our first idea was before rapport. So what are you teaching? Why are you teaching before rapport? Well, actually, the before rapport is is a setup for the 4 tensions. Okay. And by the way, the audience in this particular case gave us the answers. So we asked the audience first, well, why do you think we did this? And then our jobs as trainers is to fill in the gaps. Okay. And how do you plan to do this? Well, we're going to make this audience participation, and we're also going to use video. So again, that's an example as how we use this tool, the 3D outline. What are you teaching? Why are you teaching it? And then how do you plan to deliver it? Again, it's one of the advanced tools, and this is something that we use in the Trainer workshop.
And Ed, what I love about it is that 3rd column, how are you going to do it? And what you teach us to do is it lecture? Is it exercise? Is it a combination of them? That's why it's 3D, 3-dimensional. How are we going to arrive? Again, in speaking, it's how are we going to make this point sticky? In training, it's how are we going to change their behavior? So sometimes an exercise is going to be best, but then you can't do exercise. That's just, but again, this leads us to number 4, which to me was the biggest aha I've ever had in training, which is the power of the debrief. This is critical. Ed, I'll let you explain that.
Okay, so the power of the debrief, and this is a slide I accidentally showed earlier, but I'm going to show it again right now. And this is the person's name who I cannot pronounce, and I'm just going to leave it. I'm just going to call him Tiagi. And people do not learn from experience; they learn from reflecting on their experience. The failure to debrief is the main reason why people fail to reach their full potential in performance. During our Train to Train program, we're going to share with you a 7-step debriefing process. This is where the learning takes place. This is where behavior change takes place. It's in the debriefing. This is when you have an exercise. Now, here's what like a lot of inexperienced trainers do. They do these exercises, these activities. You could chat GPT it, you can Google some exercises, etc. But here's a piece that they miss. They don't know how to debrief. They don't know how to connect that exercise, that activity, to your real world and to the problems that you're facing in the real world, the problems that you're facing in your job, etc. That's the part that they're missing, and that's the piece where experienced trainers. That's the difference here. Everything we do is for a purpose. Everything we do is for a reason, and that is the first thing we're going to ask you is, what are your training challenges? And we're gonna hold that list of training challenges up, and every tool and technique and strategy that we use, we're going to check it against your challenges. We're going to constantly, perpetually go back to your list, your individual list, not just a generic list, your individual list, and we're not going to check those things off until you tell us that they've gotten checked off, and you can make some type of progress. So the biggest thing, the biggest difference is debriefing and knowing how to do it properly. Darren?
Yeah, and think about it this way too. We've heard Patricia Fripp say true learning happens in moments of reflection. When you're doing a speech, entertaining, inspiration, higher level, you give them long pauses to reflect. In training, we give them much deeper time in the debrief to be able to reflect on the experience they had, the experience with the group, and this person gives this perspective and they give that perspective. And That's where the aha comes from. So it's it's a pause, mega important and much longer, yet, as you had taught us, Ed, how to facilitate that properly.
Mm-hmm.
Sweet. Hey, I'm curious, if you're watching this, what keepers have you gotten so far? What keepers have you gotten from this so far? We haven't done this. We haven't done this event in like 6 years, bringing it back because I really think it's critical to a lot of our people, the debrief. Thank you, Miriam. So I'm curious, what's landing the best? The 4 tensions at the beginning? Yes, absolutely. All 4 are going to dull the effect if you're not aware of it and you don't take the time to break that. Patricia Fripp.
Debrief is key. Before rapport.
Yeah, instructions are the heartbeat. Yeah. You miss that and you miss everything. And here's the biggest challenge, Ed, maybe you can talk to this, is that everyone thinks their instructions are clear.
Ooh.
You do. We think it's clear to us.
Yes.
Clear to us. And unless you see people doing your exercises properly, guess what? They're not clear.
This is why, for example, in a live event, I'll check in with people, and also virtually, we'll check in with them to make sure that they understand. Because usually, here's what people normally do is they'll shake their heads like this, even if they're slightly confused. Again, the number one fear is not public speaking, it's public humiliation. So they don't want to come across as, well, not getting it. But and you can actually see it if there's an exercise or activity you give them that they're slightly off track. So again, our job is to gently to remind them. And here's something else that's another difference between speaking and training. In speaking, we are impressed with the speaker. We walk away. That woman was amazing. That person, oh, that God, they were out of this world. But in training, our job is for the participants to be impressed with themselves. And by the way, if they walk away impressed with us, we haven't done our job. Let me give an example. So again, I showed you a picture of my daughter, and we take her out to the park every single day. So yesterday we found a brand new park. It looks like more like an art gallery than anything else. Almost all the things we couldn't figure out what they were. There was this little device, and it was like 5 different rows, and you have these like little plastic slots, and you just push them in. Now my daughter is, she's maybe 40 inches tall. And she couldn't reach the top 2 rows. So she pushes in row number 1, row number 2, row number 3, and she looks at row number 4, and I tell her, I says, honey, I think you could reach it if you jump. And she reaches, and she's able to jump and push in all these little buttons on row number 4. Now, I had to help her with row number 5, but she walked away like, hey, Daddy, I did that. And at first she thought she couldn't do it. And the reason I bring this story up is that's the same feeling that your participants need to feel when they leave your training. I did that. They should be impressed with themselves. They should not be impressed with the trainers.
Yeah. So one more critical question, because I want you to see how this relates to your training. Type in the chat how you felt or what went through your mind when we called your name at the beginning, or we asked you to put in where you were chiming in from. What thought hit you? What thought went through your mind when we called out your name? Made my day. I felt known. It's important. Ownership. Felt like a rock star.
Felt like a rock star.
Being noticed. You cared. Absolutely. See, that's part of before rapport. So in the room, we not only shake hands and make eye contact, we have large name tags with just the first name on them in front of each participant. So on the back side, we have the audience members, they need to be reminded their training, the new person, the old person, the cheerleader, the skeptical one. So that's the reminder to them. But the front faces us. So from the stage, we can quickly and easily call out people's names. That's part of rapport. And just doing it here virtually, like the fact that you felt that is important for you to engage with us. Well, how can you do it? Look, we teach you all the secrets and what we do and why we do it. Ed?
So I want to talk to you about our trainer training program. Again, we haven't done this like a number of years, and we would love for you to join us. If you choose not to, that's okay as well. Hopefully we've given you value, and we're going to continue to give you some value all the way to the end of this webinar. But here's the thing I think that really makes the difference is we have something called the Teach Back. The Teach Back is for the VIPs. And again, if the VIP, if you're the type of individual that you want a quantum leap, you just don't want to, I don't know about you, but I'm a do-it-yourselfer. And sometimes when I do things on my own, it takes me a long time to get something done. I don't know if that's your experience, but that's my experience. However, if I want a quantum leap, what I'll do is I'll pay for what I call an immersion experience. For example, I have a coach. My coach, she charges $35,000 a year. Guess what? She's given me an immersion experience in terms of making it through the pandemic with my business. That it was worth every penny. We want to give you an immersion experience as well. And this is what makes our training different. If you're a VIP, you get to teach some of your content. Either it could be some of your existing content or it could be some content from the past. But what we will do is on day 3, when you teach your content, you'll get a chance to practice some of these tools and tips and techniques to enhance your existing content. Or if there's some new content you want to develop, we'll help you create that new content. That's phase 1. Phase 2 is we're going to give you a deep dive feedback. And this deep dive feedback is a minimum of 25 minutes. So we're not just, it's not going to be your Toastmasters club. Well, hey, that was great. And, and the person gives you feedback in 2 minutes and 20 seconds and you're done. We're actually going to give you 10x deep dive feedback. We're going to look at all the things that you did well. And we're going to exhaust all the things that you did well. And then from there, we're going to make suggestions. Here's another way of doing it. Here's another way of looking at it, etc. And it's not only just myself and Darren, but also the participants. So in this case, now here's another benefit. If you're not a VIP, guess what? You're going to benefit as well. Because you're going to be part of the, it's called the peer feedback process. And you're one of the peers who's going to be giving feedback to the VIPs. And we're going to give you what we call targeted feedback. So we're going to give you a topic or subject, and your job is only to use that topic and that subject. Only look at that presentation from that standpoint. And then we'll rotate that. And then you're going to look at it from a different angle. What we want to do is almost like different camera angles on a television show. We want to give you different angles in terms of looking at a presentation from different perspectives. Darren?
Yeah, we call them filters. So we train you to almost like the horse blinders. Just look at this. This group, just look at this. But now when you focus and we pull back, you're going to be able to see all of it differently. So I just give you quick highlights. Here's what the event is going to look like.
When I was in corporate America, my boss would assign a member of the staff to do some training. Let's say time management. And that person would energetically and enthusiastically race to their computer. They would take out their PowerPoint slides and they would present, and we would die by PowerPoint. It was a slow, painful death. Have you ever experienced that? Have you ever trained that way? Oops. So the question for you is this: do you want to be that type of trainer, or do you want to be
a world-class trainer? Someone who changes behavior, the go-to person at your company or in your subject.
I am a senior partner at the Evaluator Group.
I do a lot of work with salespeople.
I'm on staff at a church. I'm the operations director.
I'm a life coach, trainer, and a motivational speaker.
Coach, trainer, and professional speaker.
I am a professional trainer, consultant, and speaker.
My name is Darren LaCroix, and I've been training, thanks to him, for over 2 decades, executives around the world.
My name is Ed Tate. I'm a former training director. I've worked for world-class training companies and organizations around the globe for over 20 years.
This program is going to change the way you look at training forever. guaranteed.
I'm hoping to be able to like training.
Oftentimes you get people who are just there because they have to be there. So you have to make it interesting so that they get something out of it. So it's real value for them.
I'm looking for best practices.
How to better structure my training programs.
Really get into the mindset, the perspective that you have, that Ed has, that can really make me a much better trainer on the stage.
The more we can learn about training, the better off our entire organization is going to be.
And I want to create a classroom environment that people are excited to be at. I don't want people to be bored. I want them to say, oh, Sandra's teaching a class. I can't wait to show up.
In this program, you'll discover the magic of the debrief. This is where real-world applications take place.
It was brilliant. These guys really know their stuff.
Increasing my toolbox of tools that I can use while training.
And so for me, it's really going to change the way I do most of my trainings, honestly.
You will find the difference between being a speaker, presenter, and a trainer. Huge difference, different outcome, different techniques.
Here's something that's a real big-time secret that most people don't know. Training can actually be fun. You can actually have fun in training.
You'll discover too, world-class training changes lives.
Now I'm learning to share more and actually create more audience engagement.
You'll also learn how to, follow along with me, make your training sticky. Training is sticky.
I had already made my money's worth by the time we got to the first break.
You'll also discover mistakes that most trainers make and how to avoid them. They're so simple, so easy, but if you're not aware, ain't gonna happen.
I'm coming home with a million ideas to improve my presentations.
Here's what I've also noticed in my corporate career. The trainers are among the most visible people in the organization. And the trainers are the people, since they're so visible, guess what? They get a lot of the promotions.
I did not look at the clock once all day, and by the time I did, it was almost 5 o'clock, and I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that I had been here all day. You guys kept us thinking, kept us moving.
World-class training is creating an experience. We're gonna show you exactly how to do that.
World-class training also impacts the lives of the learners. We've been told that the content not only impacts their business life, but also impacts their personal lives as well.
I feel like I got way more than my money's worth. Honestly, I feel like I'm ripping you guys off by what I got out of it. I mean, I feel like I want to send out everyone who I work with to this course.
I just have one question. Why aren't you here?
Join us. All right, so join us. Love to have you join us. It's coming up in a couple weeks, June 14th, 15th, 16th. StageTimeWorkshops.com or scan that QR code and it'll take you right to the event page. Use the code EVENT25 because you are here and took the time with us. We want to give you that bonus. Ed Tate, any more thoughts?
Let's see. Again, let's get back to differences between speaking and training. And we talked about this on your podcast. I call the responsibility. When you are a speaker, your only responsibility is to share your content, and that's it. There is no responsibility in terms of did the audience actually get it? And that's been one of the challenges. I mean, I've been in this business for 24 years, and it's been the big time challenge is if I gave a speech, it's very difficult for us to track who, followed the advice and how they're doing. I've occasionally people will reach out to us, and then there's sometimes I have a process when people want to connect with me on LinkedIn. We ask them, hey, think beyond the usual LinkedIn cliches. Hey, you're growing your network. We know the same people, etc. We ask, think deeply. Why do you want to connect with my network? And occasionally, just this past week, I just got a message from a gentleman who says, hey, I saw you speak in Toronto. I was in this place at that particular time. You said this, and this really helped me in my career and in my personal life. So that's not a really good system in terms of finding out the impact of your speech. But as a trainer, our responsibility is to the learners. Our responsibility is to make sure that we keep the momentum going. Our responsibility is to make sure that they got it. All of my training contracts, there is a methodology for keeping the momentum going long after the event. I just signed a new training contract this month. I mean, sorry, in May. And that's right, it's June already. And we're going to keep the momentum. I kicked off a keynote presentation last month. Actually, this was started in April. And we're meeting every month until the end of the year, actually until February, with their organization. That's an example of keeping the momentum going, me being a responsible trainer to that organization to make sure that they get a return on their investments and their people produce results. Darren?
Awesome. So if you got any questions, whoops, sorry, David, nimble fingers are not on my hands. Thanks, David. Any questions? Any questions at all about the event or training in general? Again, scan the QR code. Would love to have you join us. The price goes up tonight. So if you're interested, considering it all, please go to the website. I put it there in the chat. I'll put it there again. And listen, if you're watching the replay of this, hurry up. Hurry up.
Hey.
You can still get the 25% off. Ed?
And we would love to see you live. Now, if you sign up for the virtual program, no problem whatsoever, but we would love to see you live. Especially, we're in Vegas. We're in Las Vegas. They've got new casinos here. They've got awesome food here. And I got to tell you something. This is what people typically do. Okay. So let's see. This is Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. People stay the weekend. This is technically considered a business trip, so you can, write a portion off, or if not all of it, on your business expenses. I'm just saying, I'm just throwing some ideas out there. And again, we have a motto here in Las Vegas: what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Actually, technically, it stays on TikTok forever, but that's another story altogether. Okay, Darren?
Yeah, there's a Lori asked a question. Any tips on deciding what to train and how to find my content? So generally, if you're just getting started, the people that we talked about, Ford Sakes, Mark Sanborn, Ed, Craig, David Brooks, they started working for training companies where they were supplied the content, yet they had to bring in their own stories. So which are the training companies that are still around, Ed?
You still have Career Track. You still have almost all those training companies are still around to this day. By the way, my recommendation is that if you do work for a training company, don't do anything longer than a year or two maximum. The fees are fairly low, but they will give you a great deal of stage time, if you will. Okay, so that would be my recommendation with regard to that.
Yeah, and what I just popped in there in terms of, you got to find the subject that you love, but you also want to be training from a place of experience. So where do you have experience, Ed?
Another suggestion is, and this is a Craig Valentine aphorism, jump into what you fell into. And what he means by that is, I'm a former executive in the computer industry. Now, when I left the computer industry, I've had over 2,000 people work for me. I was burnt to a crisp. I was a crispy critter. And so when I was approached to do leadership programs, I said, look, there's no way I want to do that whatsoever. However, it was something I was good at. It was something that I had a knowledge base. I remember one time, University of Maryland. Now, the training companies, historically, what they do is they provide you with, they usually provide you with a script, they provide you with an outline and all the content to teach that particular audience. I actually got hired to teach at the University of Maryland. They said, Ed, you're an executive. They gave me no script whatsoever. No script, no slides, nothing. But you know what? That's okay. So I walked into the room with nothing but a marker and a whiteboard. And I asked the audience, what are your leadership challenges?
Wow.
And we spent the entire day working from that flip chart. Jump into what you fell into. That's one of my superpowers. And again, I teach a program called Making Managers into Leaders. It's a keynote. It's a training program. It's a half day, full day. It's a 5-day training program. I still get booked to that 25 years later. That's how powerful that program is.
Yeah. And Miriam, I want to give a quick shout out. Miriam just signed up, Ed.
Oh, all right.
Going to be joining us virtually. Very cool. And what I would say is I started off with the humor boot camp. That was my first training program before Ed. There's BE and AE, before Ed and after Ed. And I was doing it with someone who I learned comedy from. So we took his course, his comedy writing course, and we turned it over to clean humor for corporate. And so I already had the basis of the content because I learned from him. I took the course and I was out there doing it. So I had that reservoir of experience to tap into. Then after the World Championship, I first teamed up with Craig Valentine and then Ed and Mark. So people were asking us, how do you do this? Well, I don't know. Okay, here's how I did it. I did this, then I did this, and I did this. So with Ed's help, we crafted these different training programs. But look it, had I not done it with Ed, and had I not had the original course where I was handed the content and then developed it into live, he used to do it as a nightlife course. So it was like a 6-week course or something like that. But now, had I not had that content to begin with, my training would have been horrible. And then working with Ed into creating it, it sped up me getting to world class more quickly. And that's what we're offering here. Ed?
So, again, Patricia Fripp says, sameness is the enemy of a presenter. Our trainings are not the same. They're not your mom and dad's training programs. They're interactive. For example, one of our guiding principles is how can we make the audience a part of the show? And what we discovered is the audience likes to be a part of the show. And to the degree that they are a part of the show, guess what? They have an immersion experience and they're learning and they're growing. Okay. So that's, if you join us, it's going to be a party and you're going to be, you're definitely going to make some advances. I want to share one quick story with you to show you how powerful training can be. I took my wife to New York. That's one of her favorite cities for her birthday. It is in November. It is cold. We're in Times Square, right off of Broadway. All of a sudden, I'm on the intersection. I'm on one corner of Broadway, and I hear someone screaming across the other side, category on the other side. And there's Mr. Tate, Mr. Tate. I'm thinking, who's calling me? I'm in New York. I look across and I see one of my previous students from a large Fortune 500 company. He says, Mr. Tate, he says, there's 3 elements to an opening. He says, break preoccupation, frame the message, jump into the content. I couldn't believe it. That's something that I had taught that student 7 years before. Here we are in New York in the middle of winter on a busy intersection. And this student remembered a lesson I taught him 7 years before. Our training is sticky, plus it's also a great deal of fun and it's effective.
You're never going to look at training the same way again. I want to thank you for joining us. We're going to sign off now. I think we've answered all the questions. Love to have you. Scan that QR code, grab the link in the chat, use the code EVENT25. Those of you, I know there's several Stage Time members here too, just like Miriam, use your Stage Time discount code, gives you more off. Remember, it ends tonight. The price goes up tonight. So you can still use the code tomorrow. However, it's going to be a higher price tomorrow before we, it's going to be a higher price tomorrow. So you can get a percentage off, but it's still going to be higher than if you do it today.
And also sign up and get the replays. So some of you have already told me, you already sent me email, text messages, etc. You can't make it. That's okay. In this case, sign up, get the lower price and play it back at your leisure. So you'll have access to this, forever. Darren?
Yep. We'll even give you the MP3s that you can download and keep. You get access to the replays for a year. If you don't watch it in a year, you're probably not going to watch it. So we leave it up for a year. So again, love to have you join us. Train the Trainer, Ed Tate, thank you for joining me. And most importantly, thank you for shortening my learning curve so I can help people change their behavior and make a bigger impact than I do when I'm giving a keynote speech. Ed Tate, final thoughts, take us home.
Thank you very much. And Rich, thank you. Yes, the Boulder camera is still around as a newspaper. Wow, that's remarkable, man. So yeah, I do read the chat, just in case you're curious. All right, so congratulations on that one. All right, and we're out.
See ya.